It's that time of year again. People are rolling up the rim for a new prime minister. Hopefully, I might be rolling up the rim for a new place to live. Holy cow. Marty up north, welcome. Thanks for coming a few days early because I'm going to be flying out, going to Japan, leaving this place for a couple of weeks. Might actually be leaving for a longer period of time. So I just got word, you knew just before we started recording, but I got word that I'm going to have to leave my rental home. Where I rent here in British Columbia. I just got notice. 2 months. That's all I get. That's all I get to sort out my life.
And I told you before. I went actually here. I'll show the viewers. I have a book here, Landlording in Canada. I used to own a property, and so I'm familiar with the landlord rules. And then my kids all read. So when you told me 2 months, I was a little bit surprised. So I went and grabbed the book to see it, and turns out, yeah, you guys in British Columbia have some pretty. I would say that's the rule that favors the landlord over the tenant, and I would have naturally assumed that the tenants had a lot of rights in BC, but. Yeah.
Well, see, the thing is, like, if the landlord wants to sell the place, they can't just sell the place and boot you out. Like, you can live there until they sell it, but often they don't want you in the place when they're trying to sell it, and that's the thing. But they can't kick you out for that, and they can't kick you out if they want to just like get other tenants, like. So this is where the renoviction thing comes into play.
But they can play games though, right? I mean, they can play games. They can say we're renovating, or they can say we're selling it, and then you leave because it's legit, and then they try to sell it for, let's say, a month and fail, and then put it back on the rental market at 10% or 15% higher. So there's
I'm moving back in, which is what we got. We're moving back in, and then they move back in to renovate and sell it, or then put it back on the rental market not much longer after. Now, I'm not the type to attribute malice where there may not be. We've rented here for over 10 years, and for all I know, he is moving back
in the same spot. Like you've been a tenant of this landlord for 10 years.
That's correct. Yeah, for more than 10 years.
Oh God, so. Yeah. No, then it must be legit. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's probably legit, because me personally, when I was a landlord, I did everything to keep a good tenant. So by definition, if you had been with me for 10 years, I'd want to try and keep you for another 15 years. You know, nothing's better that, like, you want a good tenant. So I'm going to go on a limb and say he probably has a very legit reason for doing what he's doing then.
Yeah, but know this too, because you were reading the act there, you can only increase the rents by 4% per year. And that's not where the market is anymore. It's not moved 4% per year. It's moved considerably, and we're paying rents that were equivalent to 10 years ago rents, and now things have changed considerably. And
okay. And hang on, let me clarify. So let's say. So you've basically had a 4% raise every year for 10 years, nothing more than that.
No, that you didn't bother raising the rent for 4 years.
Oh God! So this guy is way out of the market. Oh, okay. So he might have finally looked in the papers and went, "Holy shit! I could be making 3 times the rent if I get Clyde out of here and somebody else."
Well, that's what we're talking about.
Oh no, that's not a rental. That's not a rental.
That's a rental.
No.
I blurred out where, but it's where I live. It's not my house, but it's in the same
4,000 a month.
$4,000 a month. $4,000.
That's 4,000. I'm gonna round it like that's the $3.99 Walmart special. Like, that's advertise it, man. That's 4,000. That's $48,000 a year.
Yeah.
4 times 12 is 48,000. That place to rent.
Yeah. So it's almost 4 times what it was when we started renting.
Insane.
Like, that's
insane.
That's where it's at right now. And it's not, this isn't the only place. It's crazy. Now, if you wanted to buy the place instead, this is what you're looking at. This is the same townhouse complex. And we're not talking Vancouver, because we
just go back and forth real quick. Just quick.
That's a rent.
It is the same. It is the same place. It's got the blue triangle over the door. It's the same place.
Yeah,
so a
place
like that is worth.
$900,000.
Oh my God.
I'm not kidding. I mean, I can't help but laugh at it because it's just
Well,
so ridiculous. Now, these places
Clyde,
when they were built in 2002, they were probably sold for what, 250,000, max 300,000 after all said and done. Like this is what these things are worth at the end of the day. But this is the housing boom. This is the housing bubble that we're
like,
in
first of all,
Canada.
I'm having a hard time with this. So let's, a couple of things come to mind. First of all, I'm going to round it up. That's 1,000 square feet. It says 1,067. Let's make it 1,000 to make the math easy. 900,000. That's $900 a square foot. My God. I remember 10 years ago, if I went to a builder and I said, build me a house for $900 a square foot, he would have said, what do you want, dude? Do you want gold plated faucet? Do you want teak floors? Do you want albino alligator drapes? Like $900 would have been impossible. It would have been so ridiculously hard to build a house for $900 a square foot, and now that's the going rate.
Yeah, it's the going rate.
Your neck of the woods. That's not.
And this is for an older place.
Yeah, this is not Calgary market. Let's be clear, folks. This is BC. That's insane.
So you look at some of the newer builds that are out there. Here's now this is fully furnished, right? This is a 3-bedroom townhouse with a rooftop deck. $5,500 a month. Look at the reactions. I love the mixed reactions. This is from, I believe, one of the Facebook pages. Laughing, crying, and shocked.
Clyde, $5,500 a month. Okay, I'm going to do it fast. $5,500 a month is $66,000 in rent in a year.
Yeah.
To earn, anybody who earns $66,000 is in the 20% bracket or 25%. So I'm going to divide that by
66
0.8.
After taxes. Obviously, this is what you're paying.
Right. So you would have to earn $82,500 before tax. $82,000. You earn $82,000. You pay 20% in taxes. You're left with 66. That's your rent. That's not your internet. That's not your groceries. That's not your happy ending massage or nothing. This is just rent.
I can keep going. It's crazy. Here's a 3-bedroom, 5750. They just had to round it. 57 was just not enough.
Yeah.
I gotta get that 5750.
I know why they do that, because when you're searching on the internet, if you say up to, say, 6,000, then they fall under the radar, blah blah. It's the same as advertising as $399 at Walmart. I mean,
and then these are the going rates for sale. Townhouse for $1.298 million. This is a luxury place. They keep building all these luxury places. 5-bedroom, 6 bathrooms.
Which is a problem. We've talked about housing a couple of times. It is a problem, right? Actually, Jagmeet. Okay, I'll give Jagmeet a little bit of credit, right? He said one of the problems was that builders were building nicer houses, and he wants builders to build shittier houses. It's true. Like, we need to be building, building affordable housing, but obviously there's a market for this stuff. Otherwise,
here's Vancouver.
Yeah,
3 bedrooms, 1 bath, $6,500. And it's
remember
tiny.
Our chat with remember our chat with remember our chat with Darshan last month, right, or 2 months ago. Darshan said that in Toronto that would go for in Toronto they would put 8 beds in there. They would put bunk beds on all 4 corners and then charge $500 per bed to foreign students and rent it out for $8,000. That's what that's a scam, but that's
so I'm in a pickle, Marty. I'm in a pickle.
Yeah, you got to move.
Yeah, so I'm in a hot spot because I'm gonna have to move towns. And when I'm looking at the situation, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to quit my job, my day job. I'm gonna have to uproot my friends and all the people that I know. I'm gonna have to uproot my kids from their schools, and we're gonna have to move somewhere absolutely new. But do we want to move to another expensive place that's cold?
Hang on, before you go too far, bring back the roll up the rim. Bring back that picture of the roll up the rim. That's how we started the show, right?
Yeah.
And so we all want. I can't tell you how many people would cheer if we had a new prime minister tomorrow morning, and if that contest was real and one of the prizes was a new prime minister, I could gather, I'd use my followers, yours, and everybody else's, and we'll buy every cup around and make sure we get a new prime minister. what you're facing right now, you just became a victim. You've probably avoided somehow or other being a true victim of Trudeau these last few years, and today it just hit you.
It just hit
and
me. Yeah.
it's hitting Canadians across the country day after day after day after day. There's no we've talked about this. There's no reason for a housing crisis, none whatsoever, man. Get rid of slow down immigration, let the housing industry catch up, get rid of the carbon tax, because Tiff Macklin has admitted that it's 0.6 of the inflation, which would bring the inflation back down to within the target of the Bank of Canada, and the Bank of Canada could start bringing down interest rates, and things would settle in and get organized. But we keep going down. This is what's frustrating for me and for you today. This is all preventable, and we got an idiot at the helm who's making things worse.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And
Yep.
there's no sign of it correcting. In fact, the economists globally are looking at Canada and saying that we're looking at a decade at least of
Yep.
stagnation. It's not going anywhere.
And then I've talked about the brain drain in terms of my son's looking for work in the US, and now I wouldn't be surprised. You're dual citizen, so you might as well go to the US,
So
and you're
that's
part of the brain drain.
so that's
You're
where
a
I was going.
talented, yeah, you're a talented mechanic who can play the piano. We saw that on Friday. You speak fluent English and Japanese, and you got mad skills, my friend. Mad skills. And there's hardly does it feel like Canada wants you to stay here?
Well,
No.
that's hard, right? Because,
Yeah.
like I said, if I'm uprooting everything in my life and I'm moving, it doesn't matter if I move 50 kilometers away or 5,000 kilometers away.
It's the
It's the
same hardship.
same hardship.
Yeah,
But the
totally.
only difference is, what do I end up with at the other end? What do I end up with when I get to the other side and I start building my life up again? Am I moving to Brampton? You know what I mean? Where it's just going to be colder and worse off and more
No. Don't go to
expensive,
Brampton.
you know. But am
Yeah,
I
yeah.
going to move to Kelowna, where it's just going to be, again, it's going to cost me more money than I was spending now? It's going to be colder. It's going to be all the same hardships of trying to make new relationships, trying to establish a new career. Well, I mean, obviously I have a career, but establishing a new place to continue my career. All of these things, those considerations would be so much easier if I knew that I was settling in a place that the weather was warmer and the pay was much greater, and what I get to keep out of my pay is much greater, and I have more rights as a citizen, and
Oh,
they're not being just stripped away from me on a
dude,
daily basis.
you're I don't know. I mean, to me, you should be heading to Texas right away. Go to Texas. Go to Texas. I mean, there's 7 states without income tax: Texas, Florida, North Dakota, Alaska, Tennessee, whatever. Pick one of those. If you want the beauty, I mean, if you want the beauty of British Columbia, that leaves you Washington and Oregon and California, and everybody says don't go there.
And don't go to
Uh,
California. It's like
yeah,
Canada warm.
I mean, Texas is affordable, no income tax, warm weather. There are parts of Texas. I mean, don't go to East Texas. You know, that's like, ugh, that's butt ugly. But if you go to West Texas or further south towards San Antonio, God, there's some gorgeous places. Florida, don't underestimate Florida. You'll find something. But unfortunately for you, unfortunately right now, you're leaving on vacation for 3 weeks. So this is going to weigh heavily on you while you're gone for 3 weeks. Jesus.
Big time.
Uh,
Yeah, well, it's gonna weigh
yeah.
heavy on me. I mean, I'm gonna
Plead
still
with your
enjoy my
landlord,
time.
man. Buy yourself a month with that landlord. I kind of did you plead with him already,
I
or you just got the
did.
letter?
I did. I pleaded and said, can I get another month? Would you at least call me back,
Yeah,
consider it?
yeah.
Because it would be nice to have my kids, at least my daughter, get to finish the school year, which ends in at the end of June, not at the end of May. So it would be nice if.
Those are all legit. Yeah, those are all legit. Like whew. He should be able to give you a month. I can't see. Geez, I wonder if that could be a consideration. School is probably a consideration.
Yeah, well,
I'll read up on that for you, because I know, like I said, I looked at the categories and the terms, or the notice period for landlords, and it was 2 months for BC. But there are a lot of excuses like that, or reasons that you might not be able to if your kids are still in school and just about to finish the school year. So Yeah, you might have an out, but it,
Yeah.
yeah,
And again, I don't want to attribute malice where it may
no,
not
no,
be,
no,
right?
no,
It could be totally
yeah, yeah.
legit. Like this is he needs to come back to his own place, and that
Dude,
that's
I don't know how often you do this, but this is something I do often. I reach out to our community. Like, you have a big following on YouTube. You have a big, I do this all the time. Like I'll reach out to people. Never reached out for rental, but I've reached out for all sorts of really interesting advice, and
yeah.
it's a great community. So don't discount that. If you got anybody from Texas listening, send in your suggestions.
Right.
I,
So the other
I'm being selfish
consideration.
here. I want you to go to Texas because then I'm going to come visit you in
Oh,
Texas.
that's funny. That's funny. So the other consideration is Japan is a place where I could live. It is a
Yes.
place where I can live. But life would be a lot harder in that situation because I don't read and write, and because I am the sole provider in my family, it would be harder for me to continue my career as an auto technician there. You definitely need to read and write a lot in that
Yeah.
job, so that would put a big crutch in things. I don't want to do the send my wife out to work in an entry level position while I'm staying at home and that kind of thing. So that one's kind of out of bounds. If there was like another way of going about that, that might be a different story. But that's not really the thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
it's a shame. Like I said, it's all preventable, and then I can't help but I think it was even today. Like you got, I think Seamus O'Regan was walking around like I don't know some town. He's been sent by Trudeau all over the place, and that was one of his tweets today, bragging about, "Oh, we're going to build 480 homes in the next 3 years." I'm like, 480 homes in the next 3 years, like. Dude, we need 5 million. Like not thousands, not hundreds of thousands. We need
millions.
millions of homes, millions. That's the liberals for you.
Well, the
God.
thing too is they could literally just do what they used to do and say like, "There's a bunch of land. We're opening it up. You can get after it, but you're gonna have to build a house on it yourself and lean back the regulations so you can just go ahead and build your own stuff." I mean, this is what a lot of
Yeah,
people in Canada used to do. It was hard to get people to move to the prairies, but you're like, here's 100 acres and a DIY house from Sears or whatever. Like they used to do
yeah.
that. They used to do that.
No, no,
Those homes are still there.
yeah, yeah, no, that was exactly the way. One of the scary things right now, even here in Alberta, the NDP are talking about it. Like they're trying to introduce rent control bills, and we all know rent control doesn't work. I mean,
Nope.
it's same thing. It's counterintuitive, has the opposite effect. Builders just go forget it. We're not going to build, and tenants aren't going to buy. So there's a fine balance, and I think across the country the problem is not landlord relationships. That's not the problem. The problem is availability, and the only way you ease up availability is to reduce the red tape, offer up a lot of lands, and promote. Let builders build. That's it. Builders have to build.
And cut back the massive, massive immigration that's coming into the country. I
Yeah,
mean,
and bring interest rates under control, because interest rates right now don't just affect and inflation. I mean, yeah, a builder. I've experienced this. Our neighbors sold their house and went and built a new one, and they got in all sorts of trouble because, the builder promised a price, and 6 months later, the builder starts to realize that he's going to be out of money because inflation is just out of control, and so yeah, inflation's not good, high interest rates, all these problems, they need to go away. I want a new prime minister, man. Roll up
yeah.
the rim. I want a new one.
And we've been
Speaking,
saying about
yeah,
we've been saying about inflation and how it's a monetary phenomena, but there's this
yeah.
other aspect that's happening because of the carbon tax and what I call the snowball effect. And it's like it is a snowball. It's this snowball that's actually sitting on the Canadian already cold economy, and it's sitting there doing just fine. But that's the carbon tax and how it actually not only it causes everything to become more expensive because you add that to the price of fuel, anything that gets shipped, it's going to cost more money. We're talking about a country that spans across how many thousands of kilometers is Canada? 5,000 kilometers, something like
Oh,
that.
more than that. No, no, from Vancouver to Halifax, it'd be 65, 7,000 kilometers. It's a long
Yeah,
ways,
so
man.
it's a long
Yeah,
ways,
yeah.
and if there's carbon tax, every kilometer matters. Like this is crazy that they're gonna have to ship stuff over here at what 60 something cents a liter more than our competition down in the States. We're gonna be so uncompetitive. Everything is gonna go up massively in price. And what is that? What occurs because of that? Some people's businesses are just on the margins, and if their business is just on the margins, tax goes up, business goes out. How many people are now unemployed? And this is what was being talked about by the budget officer, the parliamentary budget officer, and he was saying the effects of the carbon tax. It doesn't matter if you're getting a rebate, as you were pointing out earlier this week.
Yeah,
it's not even a rebate.
Yeah. No, that was a nice little tweet that resonated with people. I wanted to explain the difference between a rebate, a refund, and a discount. And what the liberals keep saying we're getting a rebate. A rebate means you paid too much and we're giving you some back, and that's not what they're doing. We're not getting rebates, man. We're getting we're getting screwed. I don't care what you say. Like, it's just,
we're getting screwed. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
And like I said, with the snowball effect, it's just destroying businesses. And then people at the end of the day, they have no, like, before the carbon tax, you had a job. After the carbon tax, you don't have a job anymore. Does it matter? Yeah. Does it matter what groceries cost if you don't have any money to pay for it?
And they're persistent on this. Let's add a little bit of comedy to this, right? They are persistent on this. Did you see Guilbeault show Guilbeault? Like they're doubling down. Like people, everyday Canadians are getting fed up with this. I mean, they've decided to make this the hill to die on, and they're doubling down on it. Like, now they're getting into, like, look at Guilbeault today. So he has to justify the carbon tax, and for weeks now he hasn't been talking about the carbon tax as a way to reduce emissions. Every time he talks about the carbon tax and the rebate, it's wealth transfer, and they forget to mention emissions. So now this week he's like, yeah, we got to remind Canadians that the carbon tax is to lower emissions because climate change is out of control. So he does this bullshit interview. It's 4 degrees Celsius in Montreal where he's doing the interview, and what does the clown do? He wears a parka to try and make it like, like, what's he trying to convince of? It's super cold, like that.
I love how he contradicts himself in the first little bit. So let's play what he says in the beginning.
Hi, Minister. Good to see you. Thank you very much for making the time.
My pleasure, Vashi.
Can you explain to Canadians watching, Minister, why it was okay to pause the price on carbon for home heating oil, but not for this upcoming increase as of April 1st?
So the very reason for putting a price on pollution, and it's been done before, and not just for climate change, but for other environmental challenges, is that you want to incentivize change in behavior for companies, industrial organizations, but also individuals. What we found out with home heating oil is that the vast majority, in fact, of people who are still using home heating oil in Canada, and there are more people in my home province of Quebec than in all of Atlantic Canada, for example, that still use it, but tend to be lower to middle income Canadians who don't have the money to make the switch for less polluting form of home heating oil, home heating, which is why we decided to put a pause specifically on this, because home heating oil is the most expensive, it's the most inefficient, and it's the most polluting way of heating your home.
So stop him right there. We did it because the people are poor and can't pay for it, and it also happens to be the most polluting form of energy that's used, and that
and I'm
that should be all the more reason to keep it on that particular.
Well, and then the other thing he said, like, when they first introduced this break, everybody's like, it's a break for Atlantic Canada, and then Atlantic Canada was getting picked on. So then so now he comes up with a doozy. He's like, and Quebecers are the biggest users of home heating oil. So he's trying to deflect the heat off Atlantic Canada and redirect it to Quebec.
But they're giving Quebec a deal? They're giving
Quebec another deal. Yeah. And then Quebec, which apparently which already has no carbon tax. So home heating oil in Quebec is not even taxed. Like, they're so full of shit.
It's crazy.
They're not even challenging. I mean, he's prepared for the question. He knew she was going to ask the question. He answers with garbage, and she should be completely prepared to challenge, they don't even challenge. They don't even challenge.
It was a
But
political decision. Like, why do they even bother pretending with all of this stuff? It was a political decision.
She's bought. She's with CTV, so they're compromised. And then, but for me, the funny thing about this interview is that it's just desperation on their part. I mean, he's doing backflips. The whole Liberal Party's been doing backflips over the carbon tax because there is no justification, right? Even an economist that I don't really like, Trevor Toome, who's an Alberta economist that I find is a bit socialist, he totally promoted the carbon tax, and even now he's going like, I can't do it anymore. I'm like, oh, you're right. At least he's a man of integrity. He's saying I can't promote the carbon tax because the Liberals made a complete mockery of it. Like, you can't, there's no justification for what they're doing anymore. They lost it. And then so then for me, this interview is really hilarious. To me, the only thing I focused on was the parka. Like, it's 4 degrees, and he's 4 degrees, and he wants to get to that. He wants to but we need the carbon tax because climate change is changing. Look, we're in Montreal today, and I'm freezing to death. So I'm like, yeah, but if you're freezing to death, that means it's too cold. Weren't you earlier telling us that we're boiling the planet? Which one is it?
Yeah,
Steve?
Which is it? Oh, it's extreme weather. It's extreme weather that he's talking about. Now, here's the part that really makes me laugh is, so we have to give the poor people a break. That is obviously just a ploy to buy votes in liberal ridings, but it's supposed to be a behavioral tax. The whole idea is to change people's behavior. Now, I have this tweet here. This is from Wide Awake Media, saying the interviewer says to Bill Gates in this interview, a new study shows that the world's richest 1% account for more carbon emissions than the poorest 66% of the population. Now, if it's supposed to be a behavioral tax, this is what's really interesting about his response.
A new study shows the world's richest 1% account for more carbon emissions than the poorest 66%. What responsibility do you think the super rich have to act in a sustainable way as we see so many of these climate impacts falling on the backs of the world's poor?
Yeah, so, I spend about $9 million a year, so I'm buying sustainable aviation fuel and to cancel out my footprint. I wouldn't claim in any way, that means I can leave the problem alone, because I should use my skills and money to drive innovation, so that this problem doesn't just get solved for my emissions, it gets solved for everyone's emissions.
Okay, so the behavioral tax is not changing their behavior whatsoever, the top emitters in the world, but what they can do is they can buy a bunch of schemes and scams that they're just trading with each other anyway, and then subjugate all of these policies on the lower classes. So when Guilbeault says that they're pausing it because those people are poor and they can't afford to pay this, well, what about the people who can afford to pay this, but and actually change their behavior? They're not changing their behavior. That's the point.
And Bill threw a number there, like $9 million, like as if you're supposed to be impressed by the $9 million, right?
No, I'm not impressed at all.
Bill is worth $60 billion. So $9 million to Bill, that's like a freaking $3.75 transit ticket for you and me. You know what I mean? We're orders of magnitude apart. So he's like, yeah, I'll pay $9 million. That'd be like me saying, yeah, I'll offset my carbon footprint. I feel bad. I flew to Mexico. Here's $3.75. Like it's
But this tax is ruinous for the middle class.
And the poor. I mean, back to the poor. Guilbeault taught, it's been a great chat so far today. Like, Guilbeault is saying the poor are affected by home heating oil. You know what else is the poor are affected by? The cost of their rental and their food and their groceries and their gasoline and their everything. God, these guys are. Hey, have you seen the new movie that came out this week? The climate movie?
No, I keep hearing about it. People keep telling me about
it. Watch it.
What's it called so the audience knows?
It's just called the Climate Movie.
Oh,
I
okay.
think I'm pretty sure it's just called the Climate Movie, and it's fascinating. I'm not even going to spoil it. Maybe we'll talk about it in 3 weeks from now. It's a great movie, and it addresses this very specifically. How the rich are the ones who are the rich are feeling guilty and want the rest of the world to not have the benefits of what they had. Basically that's the theme of the movie, is that if you fundamentally listen to the people with the carbon tax and the problems that Earth is facing, they're blaming capitalism for having been too successful, and now we need to bring it back to the Stone Age, but not them. No,
No,
not Al
not
Gore,
them.
not Al Gore, not Bill Gates. The people in Africa. The movie talks about the people in Africa very specifically, and those poor buggers in Africa, they're still the ones who have a backyard with one goat and still burning cow dung in their living room to cook their dinner on. They want, they want fossil fuels, and we're going to try and deny it to them. It's uh, hey, let's spin it to the comedy real quick, because we're talking fossil fuel. Show Justin Trudeau's show Zoltan's clip of the motorcade.
This is the motorcade in Montreal City. Was this today? Yeah, this was. It says today
Yeah,
on
because
the tweet.
the president of Greece flew into Montreal for a visit.
Right, because they can't just have like one car. Nobody knows who the heck that guy is. Like,
Yeah, what's he here for? We're doing a big deal. We're trading maple syrup for olive oil or something like that. But look at that! Look at that!
why do they need these entourages and block up the whole road? All of this. What's the point?
Well, Zoltan, I think, points it out pretty good. This isn't a security detail. This is a show of power from the tin pot dictator of a banana republic. This is Trudeau showing off to the prime minister of Greece, and then next month he'll go to Greece. I'm sure when he went to Greece, the prime minister must have showed off to him. So now he's like, oh yeah, well, let me show you, what I can do. Like, it's,
That's
and then
it's ridiculous.
it's the world we live. Yeah.
What you? I think you were talking to me about this just last time we were speaking, and you were talking about Brian Mulroney, and we didn't get a chance to bring up Brian Mulroney in the show on the last one. But you did mention how he was like the last statesman. He was, or at least one of the last statesmen. It was, but he was able
No,
to.
I didn't say he was the last one. He was a statesman, right? Brian Mulroney was a statesman.
But he was.
I'll say Jean.
But he was able to walk out of Parliament and just talk to people on the street. There was no security detail. There was none of that stuff. It was none of this.
I went to university in Ottawa. People know this. I'm not proud of it, but I went out east. I went to university, and it's like, yeah, no, that's a different story for another day. But Ottawa is a university, has the campus is right downtown, right? From campus, from where I lived, I could walk to Parliament Hill in about 6 minutes, let's say. And we would routinely see Mr. Mulroney leave Parliament Hill and walk up Sussex Drive, and then go to 24 Sussex, the Prime Minister's home. It's about a 10-minute walk, and he would walk. Sure, Mulroney would have, if you look carefully, there would be the guy in the black suit, 20 paces behind him. But you could say, hey, Mr. Mulroney, you could walk to him and he'd shake hands with you. And what I wanted to say the other day is, was he the greatest prime minister? No, and I never said that. All I said to some people is that he happens to be the first prime minister I ever voted for, because I turned 18 in 1984 or 85. So the first time I voted in a federal election was Mulroney. And that's what I remember him for. Did he have his scandals? Absolutely. He had his scandals like everybody else. For him, it was the Airbus scandal that was the end of him. Again, the changing of envelopes or whatever the hell it was. But yeah, he was fundamentally he was a statesman, because he could, and by that I mean somebody that could go on a world stage and talk and not make us look like idiots, and that was one. And remember when Trudeau got elected, like, even my wife said she thought he was going to be a breath of fresh air, because she found Stephen Harper a little stodgy, and she always thought that Stephen didn't represent Canadians very well on the world stage. Well, how do you feel now, honey? Because we had a lot of hope for Trudeau, and then remember Trudeau, we're back. No, we're not. Like, Trudeau is a complete embarrassment on the world stage.
Yeah, complete embarrassment. I mean, it looks like He looks like a child the way he sits. I mean, we can make fun of the way he looks and the way he sits all day long, but just his behavior is ridiculous.
A statesman doesn't go on a world stage and cross his legs for the sole purpose of showing his fancy purple socks with his yellow ducks on them. Okay, that's not what a statesman does. So a statesman goes on stage and shakes hands with the other person wearing his black suit and his black socks, and the focus is not on the person, the focus is on the issue. But when Trudeau's on stage, he tries to make the focus on him instead of on the issues, and that's not what a statesman does. And even Trudeau himself said it at Mulroney's eulogy. He said Brian Mulroney was happiest when he was negotiating deals that would that benefit. Actually, his whole everything Trudeau said, I made a comment on that on Twitter. I'm like, does he know what he's reading? Because everything Trudeau admired about Mulroney was legitimate, and there was nothing that he is. So, as an example, Trudeau said Mulroney was happy when he negotiated a good win-win deal. I'm like, yeah, most of us are. Most of us think that way.
Yeah,
You meet with your landlord and it's like, I know you're in a tough situation. I'm in a tough situation. Can we find something that suits us both? I'll not an extra month, an extra 2 weeks, whatever. That's called a win-win. Trudeau doesn't think win-win, man. Trudeau thinks win-lose, win-lose. You lose, I win, I'm happy. That's how he is.
Now, I don't remember.
And now he's got a nasty one on his hands. He's got, did you see the vote extension bullshit game that they're playing right now?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you talked
before
about
you get
that
into that, I just wanted to say
one
one thing about Brian Mulroney. I don't know much about him because I was so young when he was prime minister. I only know some of the things that I've read, but there's that one thing that I never forget. Every time I go to a store, every time I buy gasoline, every time I go anywhere, I pay a GST. And that's a legacy. And it's funny because Milton Friedman said this. He said there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government solution, and that's what that is. And that'll always be his legacy. Unfortunately, if he was a great statesman and all this other stuff, he'll always be remembered for the GST.
Absolutely, I remember him for that, and I wasn't no. I'll be honest, I was in favor of the GST, but the way it was sold to us turned out to be a lie because, they sold it to us saying the GST will be a goods and services tax that tourists will pay and so forth. And so we'll collect whatever $5 billion in the GST and we'll reduce the personal tax by $5 billion. So you're like, okay, so they sold it to us as a wash. Your taxes will stay the same, but we'll somehow or other be able to collect taxes from tourists. Bullshit. They passed the GST and then they didn't lower the income tax, which is why, I live in a province. So we learned a lesson. I live in a province where it gets mentioned once in a while. Like we still don't have a sales tax. I will never, and the sales tax have been sold under the same guise. People go, we should have a sales tax in Alberta. And you'd be able to lower your personal tax. I'm like, no, you guys won't do that. So
no, you won't. And even if they temporarily lowered that, and then you introduce a new tax, they'll put your personal tax back up, and then you'll have both.
GST was 7% under Mulroney. Harper brought it down to 5%. Harper was going to bring it down to 4%. Then Trudeau came in, and I'd say, for all intents and purposes, Trudeau jacked it back up because we did the math. We talked about this. The carbon tax, to me, the amount of carbon tax they collect is equivalent to another 1% on the GST. That's I see the carbon tax as just another as a disguised goods and services tax. It is a goods and services tax. It's a tax on the commodity. So,
but the thing is, businesses can't pass it on to the consumer. So, like with GST as a business, if you sell, I don't know, say you buy, you buy lumber. As a house builder, you claim that GST, you get it back. It's the homeowner, the person who's buying the house is paying it at the end. So everybody passes it off. And
now you just remind me, that was the other way that they sold the GST to us. They sold it as a more transparent tax that was supposed to replace all these hidden excise tax and other taxes that were on materials. So, oh God, I mean, let's face it, I used to challenge people, say, we're paying 50% tax. We are paying 50% tax. Most of us are in that
at minimum,
now,
at minimum. Yeah. Like if
Yeah, because I would just look initially. I go 25% federal, 10-12% provincial, wherever you are. But then, man, your carbon tax, your GST, your HST, your land transfer tax, your service fees, your
provincial
pension
sales
plan,
tax,
your
not in
EI,
Alberta, but
your
everywhere
blah
else.
blah. Yeah. At the end of the day, if you make $80,000, you'll be lucky if you get to keep 40 of that one way or another. So
Yeah, lucky.
Yeah. So back to that quick story. So Trudeau right now is doing this weird thing. I don't know why he's picking now to do it, but Canada has fixed election dates,
Mhm.
and Trudeau played a stupid game, right? He got elected in 2019 to his second term. And midway through his second term in 2021, he saw an opportunity during COVID. He's like, I'm going to sneak one past people. So he didn't go to the full 4 years. He had an election midterm, and he won it with a minority, but that screwed up one thing behind the scene, which is 88 MPs right now, and the majority of them are Liberals and NDP. There's like 40 of them that, with the current fixed election date that we have now, if they lose the next election, they won't qualify for their golden lifetime pension. So you qualify for your lifetime pension if you sit as an MP for 6 years. And the way it is right now, the next because of this game he played in 2019, he screwed it up, and now they're short. So now he's going to apparently they're saying, it's coming from the director of elections himself, who wants to change the date because he doesn't want it to fall during some Indian holiday or something like that.
Right. So put it a week before.
Put it a week before or a month before. But no. So if this passes, this will be upsetting, because this would be an example of a law being passed by politicians to their own benefit. Nobody else on this planet would benefit from this change other than 80 MPs.
80 MPs,
80 MPs would get a guaranteed pension and wouldn't have to risk getting reelected. And that's upsetting to me.
This is the thing that people have been, accusing Jagmeet Singh of. Like, from what I heard, because he's the leader, he's already eligible. Like, once you become leader, that
nope.
So that's not true. Okay, but yeah, this is the accusation that's been hurled at Jagmeet Singh. But now it looks like there's a lot of them. But at the same right, if an early election came, none of them are eligible. None of these people, if they get voted out.
Well, and so that was some of the reason. That's always the case. That's always the case. At every election, there's the law is 6 years. So all 1.5 terms. So at any election, there's always a guy or a gal who's on the seat who, if they lose their seat, doesn't qualify. That's a reality. And in 2019, that was the reality when he called that an early election. Sorry, in 2021, when he called that election. And some people said that Trudeau did it as a way to motivate his MPs to really go out there and campaign. Interesting, but that's valid. Like, that would imply that an MP is purely motivated by the pension. I don't think that, but anyways, but he doesn't have that carrot now. Like, if all the campaigning in the world for some of his MPs won't do a thing. In fact, I'd say
no.
The 32 Liberal MPs and NDP MPs that are at call it 5 years and 6 months or whatever, they're going to lose the election, man. That's so. Yeah. But there shouldn't be, these pensions are so lucrative.
This also tells me, though, that there are 80 politicians in Parliament right now that are thinking about their own interests over a non-confidence vote in Justin Trudeau. Like
100%.
That's it.
100%.
They don't care about the taxes that you pay, anything. It's all about their pension that's adjusted to inflation. So who cares?
They're voting.
What happens?
They're voting to change a law that gives them a pension. That's wow. I'd love to be in that. Oh, yeah. I pass a law that I get. Basically, they're passing a law. They're going to pass a law saying, if we have the election on October 25th, I risk my pension. But if we pass a law that says the election is on November 6th, I'm guaranteed my pension. I don't have, whether I lose or win, I'm guaranteed my pension. So yeah,
Well,
I vote for that.
These are the same people that passed the law to make it automatic raises every April 1st, right?
Yeah.
So Harper actually removed that. He actually got rid of the automatic part of that. If they wanted raises, they'd have to apply, or they would have to bring it forward and suggest it. And that's not very popular. That's especially nowadays. So what did they do when Trudeau got in? They all got together and they voted to reinstate that rule that they all get automatic raises every April 1st. Incidentally, the same time that carbon taxes go up, the same time that excise taxes on alcohol and all these other things are going up. And we're all going to get to pay a lot more, and including them. We get to pay them a lot more.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to improved services on April 2nd. Right?
Don't hold your breath, Marty.
yeah. Like on April 2nd, there'll be no waiting at the hospital, right? And the ambulances will be faster, and the power will be more secure.
Marty, that's a provincial matter.
Oh yeah, I love those guys who tell me that. Somebody tried to defend that, or housing is not a federal matter. It's like, then why do we have a minister of housing?
Yeah, let's get rid of that office immediately. Yeah. Let's get rid of
it. It's only been 3 days. You and I talked on Friday, but and then here we are 4 days later, and it's still a gong show.
There's going to be a lot to talk about when I get back, or we're going to work out something so that we can do these while I'm in Japan. It's going to be a lot of fun, my trip. I'm going to try not to let the recent news sully any of my experiences over there. Japan has been my second home for a long time. I used to live there, by the way. Anybody who's watching this didn't know that. I lived there for 3 years. My wife and I, we met in Canada. We went over.
Where'd you live when you were living there? What part of Japan? Kyoto, right? You told me, or
no? I lived
Hiroshima.
I lived in Tokyo, and then
Tokyo. Okay.
And then we also did a couple of snowboard ski seasons up in Nagano, in a town called Hakuba, where they did the Olympics back in 1998.
Yep.
And that was really cool. It was a fun experience, and it was just really enjoyable in our early 20s, right? We did a lot of.
It's easy to say and hard to do. Don't let this news bother you too much. I mean, my advice is, if you can't do anything about it, try not to stress. Although, I guess you can do a few things. I mean, the internet's a wonderful thing. You could still look for places to rent and stuff like that while you're online or online. But
the affordability here just does not look like it. So it looks like we're gonna be uprooting. I don't know where I'm gonna end up. Leave in the comments down below. What do you think? Should I end up in Texas or Florida or Japan even? Should I end up in Alberta with Marty and my wife be terribly mad at me that I made that decision? I don't know. Not because of Marty, just because of Alberta.
Where has she lived in Canada? Just British Columbia? She's never lived elsewhere?
Just the most moderate place with the weather.
Oh, is that a factor for her? Like weather?
Absolutely.
Yeah. -40 like we have here. No fun. Nope. No. It's all right. Yep. Okay. So Marty, when's your flight? Tomorrow or a couple of days from now?
Tomorrow night we're staying at a hotel in Vancouver, and then we're flying out in the morning on Wednesday.
Right on.
So
right on.
Try to.
Yeah. Well, you have a.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep everybody up to speed on what's happening, and I'll be having a good time. That's what I'm gonna try to do. Marty, where can people find you?
Marty Up North on YouTube and Marty Up North on Twitter. Yeah, just I don't know how to describe. I was gonna say something smart ass, but just follow anything to do with I hate Trudeau. Will lead to me. Nobody hates Trudeau more than me.
Yeah, just type that in on any platform and you'll find Marty.
Yeah. Actually, I used to say that about hiking. People would wonder what my name is on YouTube. I'd say, you can find me on YouTube. They go, "What's your name?" I'm like, just type in any trail in Alberta and you'll find me, because I talk about every trail. So if you forget my name, just type in something negative about Trudeau or search Trudeau and you'll find me. If there's or Gilbo, they're all Perfect. Awesome. All right. Awesome, man. Well, you have a great trip, bud. You have a really good trip. Relax, enjoy it. drink some good beer, some sake, go do some sightseeing. We'll figure out how to stay in touch. We'll do a couple of shows while you're gone, but take a break from this insanity.
Yeah.
Take a break.
Will do. All right, everybody.
All right.
Thanks for joining. Everybody keep on trucking.
Good night, folks.